In the last section, we looked at the CSS naming convention popular among advanced developers. Now let's look at yet another advanced CSS tool called Sass. Sass, which stands for Syntactically Awesome Style Sheet. It's a preprocessor scripting language that is interpreted or compiled into cascading style sheet, CSS. It is a CSS extension language that adds additional capabilities to the original CSS language. Because it's a CSS extension language, Sass is compatible with all versions of CSS. There are a couple of CSS preprocessors out there, but Sass happens to be the most popular and widely used among them. With that being said, the question is, why do we really need Sass? Isn't the conventional CSS okay? Well, if you've ever worked with CSS before, and I believe you have, otherwise you wouldn't be taking this course, you may have observed how messy and repetitive things get relying on or using the traditional CSS approach. With the conventional CSS approach, repeating yourself is more or less non-negotiable. With Sass, however, we're able to leverage capabilities and tools that aren't possible with the traditional CSS. There are two possible ways we can write Sass code. One, there's the SCSS or Sassy CSS approach, which takes the extension .scss. Two, there is the Sass approach, which has the extension SASS, Sass, just after the language. Looking at the slide, you observed straight away that one, the SCSS extension is similar to the original CSS syntax you are already familiar with and have been using, while the SASS extension Sass differs a bit in that it doesn't use the braces and there's no semicolon separating the declarations. Rather, it relies on indentation. Because the SCSS version looks just like the original CSS developers are already familiar with and using, it turns out to be the most popular and widely used. And that's what we're going to use throughout this course. With that out of the way, now let's have a high-level overview of how Sass works. You see, when you write your Sass code in a Sass file or files, each of the Sass files is compiled and a monolithic CSS file is generated that is then applied to your web page. When we use Sass in a project that is not using a framework like React or Next.js, we get to see the generated CSS, though we are not expected to touch it or do anything with it. However, when a framework like React, Next.js is used, we don't get to see the generated CSS. All we see is the Sass file we create, and there is a video later on that shows how to use it in a framework like React or Next.js, if that's the tool you use. So, with that brief overview about Sass, let's install it and subsequently see what it brings to the developers table from the next class.